Hello everyone, this is Michael from Integrating Technology into the Curriculum, Stockton University. We're looking at Module 5 Screencasts this week. And basically, jump right in. So the idea of screencasts, I really like this idea. And there's really three ways I would like to integrate screencasts into my curriculum, the history curriculum. So the first way is through something I call short online video lectures. So this is basically very similar to what I'm doing here. It's using the screencasting software as the instructor goes through a PowerPoint presentation, providing his or her feedback as they advance through the slide so that students have a more enhanced lecture, which is very helpful, especially if they are not in class or this is an online class of sorts. And this could be very simple as just, a slide with some text on it, which your professor advances to, if they really want to get creative, adding pictures, adding movements, transitions, so you get that Ken Burns effect, but using, the screencasting to provide that sort of video, which then they can watch anytime, rewind, all that kind of stuff. The second way is assessment feedback. I think this is sort of my favorite feature for the screencasting. So writing papers is a big part of the history curriculum, and the assessment feedback would allow a professor to provide feedback on their drafts or on their final papers, and the professor can have the document open as they go through, and they can highlight certain sections and they can explain further how a student can improve, or if they should move something, add something. And I think the screencasting provides that sort of one-on-one interactivity that would happen in a regular face-to-face class, or if the student visited the professor's office to have a more discussion about this. That's sort of my favorite way of integrating the screencasting. The third way is what I call primary source explanations. So primary sources, they're documents of the past. Big part of history. This is how we learn history, is reading these documents and interpreting them. And that can be difficult sometimes. I think if you're looking at other ways of integrating technology into curriculum, having the online discussions where students are discussing these primary source documents, it may be helpful to show a screencast of sort of introducing these documents, highlighting important things to really focus on, or things that might be confusing. I think it's extremely beneficial too for primary source documents that aren't written but are more visual, such as pictures, political cartoons, posters, all these kinds of things. Being able to see what the professor's talking about, so that he or she could highlight certain parts of it, circle certain parts of it, would be really helpful. Let's get right into this. So the purpose of this technology integration, really it's sort of the same purpose as it's been in the past. It's using, connecting students with the instructors in a way that, mimics that face-to-face kind of interaction. It enhances learning and also provides information in a convenient and flexible way. Sort of the specific problem, I think that there are sort of two problems, I guess, if you could say. And the one is, how do you effectively deliver information to students, especially in an online setting, or in a more hybrid environment? And the second way is, I think, how do you provide a more meaningful feedback experience for the work that students create? And that's where I'm bringing in that assessment feedback. I'm trying to take a holistic approach to all this technology integration. So I'm constantly looking at our previous modules. So I think for this one in particular, looking at the online learning and the MOOC integration is helpful. bringing some of those concepts over. But in our readings specifically, I really like the article by Morris. That was extremely helpful, as was the articles by Bailey and Sternbeiss, because that's how you say it. They provided some really interesting, overall concepts of, just sort of a more modern approach to education, screencasting specifically, with tips and examples of how other universities and colleges have integrated the screencasting technology, which actually helped me sort of, come up with some sort of creative solutions for my curriculum. So the outcome that I expect, my expectation is that students will get a lot more out of their classes. Student learning, especially when it takes place outside of the class, will hopefully be more effective for students, and when students receive feedback on papers and projects, my hope is that they will have a better sense of what they can do to improve their work. And I can definitely see the screencasting technology helping meet those expectations. Again, concepts, some things I found helpful. I want to include sort of the idea that came from Morris with the length of the videos. Videos that are too long are distracting. Yes, you can pause them, but if I have to pause a video, I sort of disrupt the flow. So sort of chunking them into more manageable segments. Also, I like the idea presented. This is sort of a big general philosophy kind of thing of as students, as technology changes, as students' needs change, professors, instructors have a responsibility to adapt their teaching to the needs of students, when it may not necessarily be comfortable, but they sort of state, it's not really their job to be comfortable, but to meet the needs of the students. That's something that I view the ADDIE model bringing in there, which is constantly evaluating and adjusting instruction. Those are some things that I think, I like to bring into this. The assumptions. So I think the biggest assumption that I have is instructors will have the time necessarily to do these videos. It's definitely going to take some time to create them. I know from my experience creating these, I create the video and then I spend about another hour editing it sometimes, because I'm getting rid of the ums or the long pauses where I'm trying to get my notes set up or situated, or get back on my my thought process. So it definitely takes time, and this is definitely a big thing if instructors have multiple classes or multiple parts throughout the week that require these videos. It all adds up, and especially in the assessment feedback, which is my favorite thing. You've got 100 students. You're not going to be able to create 100 videos each time they do something. So, I think it's going to require some definitely time management on the side of the professor, but also some realistic expectations of what they can do. Fortunately, creating these videos is not too difficult, but I'm also assuming that instructors, have the resources available and the training available to actually complete these tasks. If they don't, they really can't create a quality screencast. The implications, I think it's going to enhance learning. It's going to be more dynamic than traditional methods of instruction, and has the potential to provide personalized feedback as if the instructor is speaking directly to a student, like in a face-to-face setting or in their office environment. I think for the history curriculum in general, it's going to be extremely beneficial for the visual primary source materials too. If you think about like having a political cartoon or a a propaganda poster and the professor can point out certain symbolism and things like that and pull it into the context of the time. It's a lot more difficult to do this by just reading text as opposed to actually seeing and pointing out, this is what I'm talking about. Look here. So I think, the screencasts, there's implications going to make those kind of learning experiences a lot more better. Learning experience is a lot better. So the point of view. So students. Again, the sort of the central thing to keep in mind is that students have access to a computer or some kind of device and an internet connection. Screencasts, they may be the best in the world, but they really aren't going to be useful if a student cannot see it or watch it. And I think a really big thing for students is also privacy. If an instructor is going to be posting a video with feedback for a paper that a professor wrote or that a student wrote, they don't want this to be on YouTube available publicly, because one, anybody can see it, and that that has some other problems in place. And then on the instructor side, I think that brings up sort of the logistics of how does one post videos so that only certain people can see. Are you need an account for using something like YouTube or some sort of thing in Blackboard? And also, as I said before, the time and training is huge. I can't stress this enough. As is having a quality program to actually do the screencasts. I think it's also important to consider if the instructor wants to include these screencasts in his or her class. And a lot of that is dependent on the type of class. For example, screencasts in mathematics classes or in computer classes, computer science classes, programming classes, that's a no-brainer. But in other classes, there's going to be a need for some creativity on how are you going to use the screencasting technology, which may work or may not work. And then on the administrative side, I think the biggest thing to consider, is will the college or university provide the tools and training necessary to do screencasts? And from a more tech side, how are they going to guarantee student privacy? How are they going to host these videos? Are you going to just, post them on YouTube? Or are they going to create their own network or integrate some other kind of network into, the program? And will students need an account to view them? What about the sizing, the space to host them, the availability? Are they going to provide these? Are they going to give students the ability to access these anytime, or are they going to delete them after a certain amount of time? So these are all things I think are important to keep in mind when you do these screencasting. You can go on any website and just download a free screencasting thing and post to YouTube, but there's really a lot more things you have to think about and have down, and policies you have to have in place in order to do it well. And I think that's where sort of the value of this class comes in, of looking at those other things and saying, well, hold on, let's have a conversation about this. So to conclude, I think screencasting is a valuable tool because it allows a user to show and explain something in a way where the technology is enhancing the learning experience. The tools are relatively easy to use. Of course, they need some training. And the resulting videos can easily be uploaded to YouTube for anybody to see. I like them. I definitely would like to incorporate them as much as possible in the curriculum, especially in the classes that are online. Thank you. Let me know if you have any feedback.